Hey, Andreas, thank you so much for coming on today and telling us about your story and about your company and your passion, actually. We're going to get into all of that and sort of dissect your interest in the company. But first, let's start with your background and your interest in real estate. How did that start? And sort of introduce yourself with that.
Well, thanks, Dale, for this opportunity. A little bit about my background. I've been passionate about real estate and building stuff since I was very young. I actually studied civil engineering in Mexico City, so that's where everything started. I wanted to be an architect, but it took me to civil engineer because it embeds a little bit more of the construction side and building, and less about the design, but more about of how everything works, no? And then immediately after that, I started working on a private equity firm focused on residential real estate, and that's where everything started. I continued during many years. All my professional life was based on real estate. I worked for professional real estate investors, doing industrial real estate afterwards. And that took me to really understanding a little bit about how to develop residential real estate, and then on the industrial side to really manage that real estate, see how that works, how the efficiencies of rental income coming into real estate. So everything, and seeing those developments going on. So I did real estate development while also doing the asset management. So it was quite nourishing. I've always been involved. My family has a real estate background as well. So we come basically from a real estate family, but for basically 3 generations. So that's adding a little bit more on my passion for it. And then I went to my MBA, UT Austin, focused on the real estate and private equity. So a little bit of what I had been doing, but a little to evolve a little bit more and focus on my own. Came back and did investment banking for real estate and private equity. So continuing on that in 2014. Well, right before that, I actually co-founded my first tech company. I wasn't hands-on because we had a very good co-founder as well, but I was the one who developed the business model. And it was basically, I don't know if you've heard of the U-ship model. It was logistics and transportation. Okay. We developed that and we actually launched it. It was doing pretty well. But our co-founders, as you know, sometimes that doesn't work very well. So we had to sell our share at a discount because of conflict of interest. And that was my first entrepreneurial side or connection with the technology part of of the technology side. And that's where everything started on this startup scene. We were investing our own money. We were trying to develop technology while still working. And in 2014, a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, man, there's this thing we're trying to do, which was basically a Netflix for reading materials. And we need someone to actually take lead on this." So I jumped in. This was a company builder. I jumped in the company builder. We developed this new technology thing. So we developed an app. We had a website, and a web app. We had iOS, Android, and everything. And we basically, I basically started doing everything. Then the company builder just like faded out on what we were doing, and I took control of the entire business. And it was impressive. This was 2014. Mexico was starting with the startup community. VCs were just launching. There were just only a few, and obviously valuations and fundraising was pretty difficult. In the end, we ended up raising $1 million. And we were scaling pretty fast. We had probably 85% of the total magazines in circulation within the app. So that was pretty nice. We had more than 65,000 books. We had newspapers. We had comic books. And once we were growing, I think we reached to more than 120,000 registrations to the app. Yeah, it was pretty nice. And we were performing very well. It was I was enjoying myself. Obviously, as part of the startup thing, you don't sleep. As I always tell every entrepreneur, is like, yeah, you might be an investment banker and go to bed and sleep 4 hours per day, but you know that you're going to sleep like a baby. And when you become an entrepreneur, you just don't sleep, no? Because there's always storms and there's always fires and there's always stuff in your head that you need to solve.
Right.
But in the end, it was very nourishing. I mean, that really clicked to what I always wanted. And I decided to fade away from the real estate at that point because I was kind of scared that real estate was going to be my entire life. And I wanted to do something different. And the technology was just coming into Mexico, and you see all these startups, and this was the opportunity, no? Unfortunately, it was the dark ages of digital media. We had Google competing against Google, uh, Facebook, and the same publishers were doing, and everything was for free. You had Twitter, you had Facebook, you had Google, you had basically New York Times. Remember when New York Times was free? So everything was free, and we were basically competing, and we're consolidating all these media or publishers within one app. But in the end, we were growing. We were still growing until we didn't. Until that's basically the music kind of stopped, and it was costing a little bit too much to acquire customers. And it was difficult to do a networking effect because we were charging $4 per month to unlimited access to what we had. So we kind of migrated into a freemium version where we connected all these publishers through their RSS feeds and basically gave it for free. And we kind of through AI and technology, we were distributing the media the media and the news directly to your phone on what you wanted to read. No, so that was like my first AI experience. And in that term, there was this opportunity to do while it was fading out, we had this opportunity to buy a property and develop five-story building, with a couple of friends and partners in the end. So I started developing again, and that real estate thing just came back. I was like, this is great. It was kind of a side business. I didn't dedicate too much time to it because I was full on with Nubler, but in the end, we were kind of investors in having that come back. We had to wind down Nubler in 2017, basically shut it down. We had a couple of acquisition opportunities, but in the end, these guys were out of it. They were offering us for anything. In the end, we were trying to give it out for free, basically, just to pay liabilities and stuff. But not even that. I mean, everything was not working, and we had different agendas, so we had to shut it down. Then I jumped to a VC firm called Mountain Nazca. I think it's one of the most recognized VCs in Mexico as a managing partner. I was there for a year, structuring, helping out the managing team. But then again, the startup scene, being an entrepreneur, just clicked back, and that's when everything started. I jumped. I started a fintech company on the blockchain rise, the Bitcoin rise. And it was like a 6-month trial with a couple of investors, and said, hey, let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, well, that's that, no. And I had a couple of twins, so obviously I started having panic attacks. There was everything was going around. It was crazy, But I was still there. I just love it. I just love the feeling, the how it works, and everything moves so fast that I was there. But in the end, this fintech company, 6 months go by. That's when everything crashed, and credibility and the technology on blockchain was kind of in the middle. Nobody knew where it was going. So again, we had to close it. We didn't have to close it. We just said, hey, let's stop here, because if not, it's just going to extend too much and we're not going to get anywhere. And then that's when I sat down and said, hey, I can't just keep on jumping into stuff that just pops to my head. And while sitting down analyzing my opportunities, it was, hey, should I go corporate again, or should I start another thing? And in that process, I was like, get into technology, get into real estate, and let's see what is missing on these. What's happening, and what we can do. And then real estate popped in.
Yeah,
again.
so let me summarize that whole background. You told us a really great story. It sounded like you went through two sort of startups to sort of scratch that entrepreneurial itch, and both of them, it sounded like you were sort of starting to build to something, but then it just didn't take off. Um,
Yeah,
and
Nubler,
then
yeah.
in between and throughout that journey, you were focused on real estate. You worked in private equity. Obviously, that's a private equity and institutional investors. So that's obviously great experience, good education. So you were building the fundamentals of real estate while you were sort of scratching your entrepreneurial itch. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, it was kind of like, obviously Nubler lasted for, we were on for 3 years, so
Wow.
we were doing it. We
Right.
had a great valuation, we had term sheets coming in, and then this potential acquisition, which took us 2 years. And I think I've learned a lot because we focused on selling instead of continuing that growth that we were having.
Yeah.
And that's something that I regret immensely, no, because we were focused on that, and instead of on the product. And then the acquirer had other time frames, so we we basically that was part of the error. Obviously, one side was the actual industry, and the other one was us focusing on something that in the end didn't was the value that we expected, no. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so you nailed it. I mean, in the end, real estate was always there, but the technology side has been my core part for the past 7 years now. So
Right.
that's something to mention, and that's how
Right.
Ancana was born. I've always been very keen on to be very efficient on the real estate, because again, I think there's a lot of real estate out there that it's not used properly. No, there's too
Right.
much square meters for an apartment building, and we see this in New York or Shanghai, where you have micro apartments. No, but
Right.
in the end, there's people but the real estate is very expensive. No, we've seen it. You
Yeah.
see apartments in San Francisco or New York, for example, that go for I don't know, 400-foot apartment goes for $2,000. You're like,
Right.
this is really crazy. And in
Right.
Mexico, we don't have that. We have like large apartments. I don't know, 1,000-square-foot apartments for 2 bedrooms, no, instead of having three
Right.
bedrooms. So Ancana was born like being efficient on the real estate in Mexico City. This was 2019, beginnings of 2019, and it started like a co-living kind of co-living and vacation rentals mix, no, where we were trying
Okay.
to be efficient, but the low-hanging fruit was basically the Sonder for Mexico, no, so the Sonder. I know you heard of Sonder. So that was
Hmm.
basically Sonder for Mexico, and we started growing, but then COVID hit. We fundraised. We had 35 apartments already up in major areas, and this was
Right.
great. We were booming. It was January of last year. February was great.
Right.
We were growing pretty fast. We had contracts. We had the money, and then COVID hit. Since Mexico City, I
Right.
mean, it
So
went crazy.
let's back up for a second, and I want to make sure that we get this right. You finished your earlier story by saying that you had this five-story apartment building that you were sort of building. Was that the initial property that you were working with?
No, no, no. That's real estate
Oh, that
development.
was
We did it on
previous.
the
Okay,
side, and it was
got it.
someone was the day to day, and we were just only investors, and we were supervising as advisors.
Got
But
it.
that's where everything started again. No, like
Okay.
that was when it clicked that real estate. I love it. I mean, it's the process. I love investing. I love seeing. I love how the building was being built. So you see the processes, and then
Right.
there's that. No, but there's always the technology side that keeps attracting as well. No, pure
Right.
real
Right. Right.
estate development is great, but then technology and being efficient, and really the prop tech side that enables all of this of what we have and what we see materialize and make it more
Hmm.
efficient for property owners or business owners or tenants, as well as landowners. No, and that's where
Okay.
technology and real estate blends in.
Got it. Got it. So when you're, let's talk about 2019 and what the initial idea was. You mentioned co-living. You mentioned vacation rentals. Um, Tell us what the concept is behind starting this company and what the sort of the problem was that you were really solving for.
Yeah, of course. So the why was basically being efficient with real estate in Mexico, because I feel like there's a lot of space out there. And the cost of living, it's going to sound crazy, Daval, but in the end, Mexico is the most expensive city to live in proportion to the income produced by per capita. No, so
Right.
people spend more than 65% of their income in rents.
Oh,
Okay, so
wow.
it's I
Okay.
know, so it's huge, and I was like, this is impossible. We have all these big apartments, and we're just leasing them more expensive instead of doing smaller rooms like exactly seeing Shanghai and New York.
Right.
So that's why it started, no? And we saw that, and then we started looking at the process. But in the process, we saw that people in Mexico are not used to living with a lot of other people. So the co-living industry for me was, we're still not there yet as a society itself. So we kind of migrated that to, let's start with vacation rents. And once we see this, we already have the properties in place, and we can just migrate them afterwards into like a co-living space. No? And then you have
Right.
like and that was like the low hanging fruit. And we saw that the numbers worked greatly. No, we were leasing apartments for $15,000, and we were renting them out for $4,000 a month. No, so we had that huge arbitrage, and that's where it started. So that's how it's transitioned from the co-living into the short-term rental space, and becoming this kind of Sunder, but with the vision of really being efficient to with the square footage of where you live in. No.
Right.
So COVID came in. Mexico City, as every single large city, collapsed, no, and tourism collapsed. So in the end, I had to shut down everything. I had to get rid of the rent contracts we had. I did a little bit more. We were being protective of what we had in the bank. We tried to really have that burn rate or runway.
Mhm.
So I kind of winded down on the contracts we had as a leases, but we kept on doing property management for owners. So we were doing that already, and that's what kept us alive for the next 6-8 months, and that's what we're running on right now. No, but in September, by August, we were looking at different pivots that made sense to what was happening. And in those pivots, we kind of were making as a brokerage agency for people who wanted houses to work from home in the
Mm.
country. So in
Right.
a lake or a tourist place. And that's where everything clicked. And we was like, there's a lot of people looking to get out of the city. You know, there's a lot of people who don't have the money or won't spend the money to buy a second home because it's either too costly, no, or
Hmm.
they're not going to use it enough to actually take the most value of it. And that's where
Right.
the real estate value is occupancy first. So maximize occupancy and then maximize rents. And that's what the real estate is all about, no? And
Right.
if you put it in other terms is you own your apartment because you're going to use it 98% of the time. That's occupancy. And
Right.
instead of paying rent, you're paying a mortgage. So you're basically maximizing that. And when you put that into a vacation home, you're like, I'm using it for 6-8 weeks per year, right? And then someone else has to manage it. They charge me for rent. They charge me a commission, and there might be some income flowing, no? But in the end, it could be a headache.
Right.
So it was like, it's been around for a while, as you said, timeshares, vacation homes, people renting out their own homes, etc. No, so in this, while we migrated, this is a place to be. We were on the same industry. We're kind of on the vacation side, no, since we started. The same thing with property management. And we are solving a real problem that today is people want to get out of their homes. They can't afford an entire house because either the mortgage is too high, the risk is too
Right.
high, and everything. And in the end, you're going to pay for that property management and maintenance and utilities and everything. You're going to divide them by the amount of owners that there are, and you're going to pay the fair amount that you should be paying for that
Right.
true use of the property. And that's what, like, everything clicked in August. And by September, I had the business plan. So I was like, we need to migrate like that. If not, we're just going to have to shut down Ancana, which is
Right.
so it was our first pivot. And that's where we are now. So for the next few months, we started doing all the legal stuff. We started analyzing all the legal stuff, the tax, well, yeah, kind of a tax due diligence that we needed to do, tax implications, how Americans are going to invest, how Mexicans are going to invest. And we started talking to developers and looking for properties to actually pull onto the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, we started seeing that there's few developers that do fractional ownership. There's small developers. Well, there's the huge ones, which are timeshare kind of. They're more like a timeshare.
Right.
But there's these few developers that are doing fractional ownership, and they do it on their own. They do their sales on their own. There's no marketplace focused on this, and it's
Right.
a multi-billion-dollar industry. Only timeshares in Mexico are worth per year 5.5 billion, and
Wow. Okay.
second home ownership is 15 billion. No, so if you
Right.
put two and two together, you're in a 20 billion industry where
Right.
where it has to be disrupted in some way to give the best option to those that are investing or trying to buy a place to be or place to stay in vacations, or just to
Got it.
to get out
So
of their home.
I think this is a really interesting distinction that we should make clear. On one hand, you have the second home market, which is essentially if I wanted to buy a house in, let's say, Cabo, then
Yeah.
I just have my own house, which I may only use a couple of weeks out of the year. On the
Yes.
other hand, there is timeshare where I essentially buy a week at a time. And that's essentially a contract. So it might be a different apartment, different unit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're sort of in between, right? So sort of explain that. How are you different from either of those two?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Deval. So in the one side, you have the timeshare industry, which is basically developers who develop hotels or big condos, or large
Right.
condo units. And what they do is they basically sell 52 times or certain amount of times that same unit, at
Right.
a crazy price, $20,000 per week,
Right.
So in the end, they're selling $1 million per unit, and that's crazy. They're making money with your money, and in the end, they have a limited use. They don't have appreciation. They do have
Right.
to pay maintenance fees, yearly maintenance fees.
Yep.
And when you want to sell it, it's a pain because there's no real transaction value of it. The only thing to transact is you don't want to pay your maintenance fees. So the end is like, please
Right.
take this off my hands, because if not, I'm gonna lose it. But I don't want to lose it. So I bought it for 20. Give me $2,000, and I'm fine. And I've heard so
Right.
many stories like these on one side, and on the other side, you have the second home ownership thing, where there's a lot of people, millennials and X-gens like us, on both sides, who are going like, I'm not going to use it. I don't want to spend, I don't know, $300,000 on a second home because I'm not going to use it that much. I'm not.
Right.
Our mindset is not there like our parents did, where I have to have my own property because I don't want
Right.
to share with anyone. So we have that potential of clients, which we already have and we've sold to, who are people our age that are saying, I don't want to buy an entire house. It's painful. It's painful to manage. I have already too many things on my plate. So I need
Right.
someone that gives me the right amount of weeks that I want per year,
Yep.
and someone who's going to take care of my property, and that I know that every time I go there, it's going to be in perfect condition. So that's where
Right.
that's like that. Those are the the two markets that we're tapping into. Obviously, there's the ultra rich and the ultra wealthy that they can spend $500,000 or $4 million and have their own home, no? But this is a larger and broader market. And to give you a little bit more perspective of our target market and our customers is we've seen homes that are going out for $200,000. They're selling for fractions, so it's basically $50,000. And it's people that would have never thought of owning a second home because they aren't a target for, no? And they're buying homes. So it's people that make $2,000 per month in Mexico who are buying these, right? Okay. So now the market, instead of focusing on the wealthy who were the only ones capable of buying a second home, you're going into a mid, like, you know, to the larger part of the pyramid.
Right. So the middle class market, basically.
Yeah. So that's when I went to these developments that we're selling, and I go into those developments, I'm like, wow, this is actually a great solution to a lot of people that we weren't considering. So that market just expands to actually capture that. So if we were talking about a $20 billion market, you can actually go to 30 billion because there's more people that can actually buy a second home.
Got it.
In Mexico.
Right. Okay. So now tell me where these properties are. And, this is essentially where we are today. You said you already have a couple of contracts that are signed. So buyers who are purchasing these sort of fractions of the property. So tell us what these transactions look like. Where are the properties? Where are the buyers? And what does the contract look like?
So right now we have 16 developments up in the platform, and I say developments because each development has multiple houses. Some of them have multiple homes, and those homes have multiple fractions. No, but right now we have 16 developments based out of very popular destinations. Right now, we're basically what we're seeing is we're seeing a large amount of people from Mexico City, which is the largest city in Mexico and one of the largest cities in the world, who are buying a lot of these properties. No, and that's Acapulco. That's a beach destination, 3-hour drive. We have Valle de Bravo, which is a beautiful lake, an hour and 30 minutes from Mexico City on the mountains, beautiful views. You have mountain biking, a little bit of everything outdoorsy. Then we have San Miguel de Allende, a very tourist town and very popular among Americans that buy a lot of these properties. So that's a major market for Americans. We're launching it. We have in Puerto Vallarta, a huge market. It's the third largest market in Mexico in terms of tourism and home sales and timeshare sales. We are launching in Tulum, basically Riviera Maya. Again, for largest market in Mexico is the Riviera Maya itself. And we have partnerships in Cabo that we're gonna upload in the next couple of weeks. No? So those are the major markets that we have right now. And one in Puerto Escondido, which is a surf town, huge surf town, third biggest wave in the world and third most popular place to surf in the world. So we're kind of targeting that kind of tourism as well.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And you mentioned as far as your customers go, most of them are coming out of either Mexico City or somewhere in the neighboring areas. So these locations are extremely convenient. That's the primary market you're going after, right?
That's right now. It's the one we've had a lot more traction, but we've seen we have clients right now looking at from Monterrey, another very big, the second largest city in Mexico, who are willing to buy in Puerto Vallarta. Then we have Guadalajara, the third largest city, who are buying in Puerto Vallarta. That's a 3-hour drive, from Guadalajara. Those are the three largest markets or target markets right now. We're targeting these three cities for most of the properties we have right now. But eventually, we're expanding to a certain segmentation, and our segmentation has been very, very unique, which has given us a lot of potential clients. So right now, we have 55 hot clients looking at our properties. When I say hot clients, are they have asked for more information. They have gone to visit the property, so it's more of the due diligence side. No?
They're engaged.
In total,
right.
yeah. So it's of that we'll close, I don't know, 10%, but again, we're growing that base, and a lot of them have been coming back. So initially we had a lot of the people coming into our website were the bounce rate was huge, but now we have a lot of people coming back constantly to look at the properties. So we're just started. We have been live, and I say live because we launched the marketing investment a month and a half ago. So we're just starting, but we're seeing and we're capturing our market, and we're creating our big database of customers. And again, I think we're going to be using that to expand, creating network effects through that system and through word of mouth, while we can explain the true differentiation and the value proposition that's huge between second home ownership and timeshares.
Right. So now you ended on the perfect note, because that's the next question I have. What does the contract look like? Because timeshares is 1 week at a time. This is not that, right? So tell me what the contract for you looks like.
Well, that's another great question, Deval. I mean, and the truth be told, most of the questions go around that, and it depends on depends on the market, on how many weeks we give out. No, for example, or how we fraction each home. There's this place again, Valle de Bravo. That's a weekend destination. So they go every single weekend. So we fraction those homes in 4 fractions, so they can go at least once a month. No, and if they want to buy 2 fractions, then they go 2 times a month, and they have access to half the year of access to that property. So there's a lot of people that are buying 2 fractions as well. So it's kind of the mindset. And then we have the Acapulco properties. That's a 3.5-hour drive from Mexico City, and we're fractioning those in 8 fractions, because it's kind of a 1 week every couple of months.
Right.
Because if you want to fly, then you have to pay those plane tickets, and if you want to drive, it's a 3.5-hour drive. So people don't go that often. So it depends on the property of how many fractions and how many weeks. But in the end, we try to be very flexible on how the weeks work. So people choose their initial weeks, the ones they do want to go, and then the rest are kind of flexible. You can choose if it's open. If it's not, then you can wait or swap that week with another co-owner. But in the end, we're trying to make this as flexible as possible to end that friction of choosing a week that you have to go to, like timeshares. And I think that's critical to making this easier, so people have the mindset that this value proposition is actually better.
Got it. So just to clarify, when you say 4 fractions or 8 fractions, what we're talking about is number of owners in that property. So when you say 4 fractions, you essentially, as an owner, I'm buying 3 months, and that 4 people essentially is a full year, and that those 3 months can be broken out over the course of 12 months, and then the other residents obviously get to break out their 3 months as well. Does that capture?
You nailed it. So it's 8 slices, 8 owners, but not necessarily. Owners can buy 2, 3, or 4 fractions.
Right. So if there are 8 fractions, it's about a month and a half. If you buy 2, you're getting 3 months. If you're getting Okay, yes, got it. Exactly. Okay, perfect. So these, as far as valuation goes, right? That's another major part of this conversation. Obviously, the locations you have are prime locations. If you're buying a property there, it's going to be super expensive. If you're buying a 4th or an 8th, does that about equate to the valuation you would pay? So, for example, if it was a $100,000 property, if you're buying a 4th, it's about a $25,000 benefit you're getting. Does the cost approximately align to that?
Yes, totally. And those are great questions, Abel, because what we're trying to aim to is really create this sensation that you're buying a property, but you also have an investment in a property like you would
Right.
if you were buying your entire home, no? So what we're telling the developers and ourselves is we have to sell at market. That
Right.
way, it becomes completely transparent that when you buy at market, you have that value, that appreciation of the property, and once you sell it becomes an investment. You made money, no, instead of losing money, because
Mm.
same as it happens as in timeshares. You're buying at a $20,000, but you know it's only for use, and you're paying a fraction of it with no sense of you're trying to make money. And this is, in our cases, you're investing on a real property. You get the title, no, you have the title of that property, and you're buying
Mm.
at market. The only thing that comes up is, okay, you're buying at market, but you have to pay for the furnishing, right? You
Hmm.
have to pay the closing costs, as in any transaction, and you have
Right.
to pay everything else. So we try to put everything together, and you'll see that there's it's not a markup, but it's a little bit above. It's above market price because you have
Uh-huh.
everything, all of this included.
Everything included. Right.
But the underlying asset is at market value.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
part of what we're trying to offer. Is every time you buy a fraction from us, you're part of Ancana, and we'll treat you that way. So
Got it.
every single year, you know that if the property has gone up and we've sold the same fractions at a different price, well, we adjust that value, and you have your application, where as an owner, you know that your price has gone up or down, no? And it's
Got it.
completely transparent.
Got it. So I think you touched on a very important thing there. Um, uh, Timeshare is essentially a contract with a company. So you're not necessarily getting a deed for a particular property and address. You're essentially just getting a contract. What you're talking about is actually having a deed to the property so that the appreciation is also yours. Um,
Yes.
so if it's $100,000 property today, and then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's a $200,000 property, your quarter that you paid 25,000 for is now 50,000 worth.
That is correct. That is totally correct. That's the main idea of this, is really the value proposition. It embeds the appreciation, the the value of using your property whenever you want, no, paying for what's right, no, and in the end having that flexibility of selling it whenever you want at a market price, no, and having, well, a little bit, it, since it's a property and it's a real estate, it's more liquid. I mean, real estate is illiquid itself, but
Right.
and then in the end is, you have a marketplace called Ancana, where you know that if you upload your property, and because you bought it from Ancana, we know like that what the price is. So we have
Yep.
everything, all your data, and we just upload it and try to sell it for you.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So that brings us to today. I think I understand the business. I think I understand where you are now. You have the marketplace open. You have some traction. What are the next sort of steps? What's the goal for 2021?
Look, the goal for 2021, I think it comes down to technology development for everything that I just mentioned. I think the marketplace needs to be more efficient to express what we are selling, or more than that, to express what our customers will buy. No,
Mm-hmm.
and I think most of the questions you asked about are in that sense, like what are they buying, and really have it clear for them that they're buying this amount of weeks, this flexibility, you can sell it this way. Right now, it's what we have is it's there, it works perfectly well, but I think there's a lot of technology that might help to be more seamless and avoid that friction. No?
Mm-hmm.
The other technology we want to develop is that owners portal, where people will be able to swap, will be able to see how their investments are going, will be able to see their invoices of what they have been paying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, and I think that's the documentation they already uploaded, so they will have their deed, they will have their I don't know, the documentation. I mean, well, all the documentation you need to buy a property. No, it's
Yep.
already in there. So when you want to sell it, we already have it for you. No, and then the
Got it.
second one, the second is team. We need to grow our team, definitely, on the sales side, technology side, and marketing side. I think that's a core part of the business right now. And thirdly, we want to increase our sales. Our budget is to sell 150 fractions in 2021, where that will take us to our next step. And once we have that and consolidate the Mexican market, it's going to be very difficult to compete against us.
Perfect. Okay. Tell me about the market that you're going after. Right now, you are focusing mostly on, the Mexican residents and them essentially expanding to second property. But when we talk about vacationing in Mexico, the first thing is the U.S. residents wanting to sort of get away for the winter. Is that a market that you're considering entering, or is that not a focus? Tell me your views on that.
Totally. I mean, the part of the market, total available market is, timeshares, for example, in timeshares itself, 70% of that market comes from the U.S. So the U.S. is a huge part of our business, because those are the clients we want to attract as well. I mean, those are the guys buying. They have more liquidity. They have more income to buy second homes. So definitely, we are targeting right now Americans to start buying these properties. We just need to tailor-made that marketing strategy, but we should start our segmentation per city. And what I mean is, for example, Puerto Vallarta, there's a lot of people coming from Colorado and Los Angeles in California. Well, California. Yep. So we need to start profiling those, segment those potential customers, which we will do once we understand the Mexican market. This will be in the next couple of months, and then we'll start profiling Americans. But then part of our growth, and I don't know if your next question was going to be on that, is there's a lot of Latin Americans who are looking to invest and buy a second home in the U.S. They beaches, they love skiing, they love golfing in Houston, and they love going to San Diego, for example. So, and we've seen that there's a lot of people asking us for that, those opportunities. So that's our eventual jump for the Series A. Once we consolidate this, is to satisfy that market as well. Right.
That's fantastic. This seems really a unique idea and really well thought out. So good job on that. Tell me a little bit about your team.
Thanks, Alex.
Tell me a little bit about your team and their experience, and how many people you have.
Right now, we're 6. We're very focused on the sales side. Technology, we're trying to expand. But the team is we have one person who's basically my ops, my COO. He helps me all with coordinating sales with the properties we have and the marketing strategies that we're implementing. There's 2 people that are, as you know, basically, being a startup with 6, it's a jack of all trades. Everybody does a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But 4 of us are focused on the startup community, on the startup side of marketing, sales, technology, and helping out with everything working how it should be. And then 2 are more focused on the owner experience, which is your home right? Is everything okay? Maintenance, is the cleaning, and having a little bit more of the NPS, the net person score of how we're doing as the manager of certain of some of these homes.
Got it. Okay, fantastic. So now we've already touched on sort of the big picture where you're essentially working with properties in US. What's the next sort of 3 to 5 year view? Investors, are always interested in what the exit looks like. So, what are your thoughts in that?
This question is always tricky for me, because I try to focus. I know that there's a 3 to 5 period, and I love dreaming. But obviously, for me, it's very important to consolidate the markets that I go into, and expand, and being the major player in this industry that the blue ocean is the blue ocean we have out there. No,
Yep.
but definitely for me is Mexico, consolidating Mexico and become the largest one. Obviously, providing additional software and innovation to what we're doing. So, for example, what we want to develop is like a vacation hub as well for all these owners that we already have, to be able to swap weekends or weeks among all these properties. No, so
Right.
if you have one property in Puerto Vallarta, boom, you can basically trade with someone in Colorado or New York for the New Year's, no, and you can
Right.
swap. So you generate this stickiness to create value on the long run for all these owners, and not only the transaction. So basically vertically integrate what we're doing. Obviously, there's the iBuyer that we are launching. So basically becoming this iBuyer open door focused on vacation second homes, and expanding to the US. I think it's a core part of our business. I mean, it's a huge market. There's millennials. There's access to capital and credit for the end user. So for me, it's consolidating Mexico, Latam, and basically the US. No, the exit strategies. Well, for me, dreaming is basically having an IPO. It's always easy to say it, but you have to plan ahead. No,
Yep.
there's obviously additional options for me. We've considered and obviously evaluated who would be our potential acquirers, and that's public companies focused on the same thing. Obviously, trying to consolidate as well as we're going to try to consolidate. For example, an open door would be a perfect acquirer for what we're doing.
Right.
But there's also Zillow, and there's all these marketplaces out there that you can basically merge together easily to include fractional ownership.
Right.
So there's and then you have the private equity side, where there's a lot of private equity partners that we know that exist, that invest in these type of industries or prop tech space,
Right.
that have the underlying value of assets, no, in the management. So that's another potential exit for investors, no.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, and with your private equity background, you understand that market. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. I know we sort of touched on a lot of different things. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have that you'd like to share?
Wow, we talked about a lot. I think, I just want to encourage to everyone, like the real value proposition of what we're selling, no, and it's technology based. No? We need to have the technology to make all of this efficient, and that's where the value will come on what we're doing, is to be very efficient and have all that friction of buying a home right now, not only a fraction. We need to really do the technology so that every single person, Mexican, American, European, or whomever comes with us, knows that the process is going to be there to help them out, no?
Right.
And the process is going to be immediate, and it's completely transparent. And what we're doing is really we're trying to help out people under these circumstances, that you have an option out there to own a home and work from home, but with a beautiful view.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you so much. And it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed getting to know you, getting to know the company. I hope we can stay in touch and continue the conversation going.
Well, I really appreciate the invitation to this interview and talk. I think this was great, amazing, and nourishing, and hope to talk to you more often and hear your feedback and tell you what we're doing.
Absolutely. Let's stay in touch. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Taval.